Hello. Hello. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining in, especially the audience and our panelists, distinguished panelists. Thank you so much for joining. We are just going to start in another, say 10 seconds. I hope we are good to start now. Is it? Thank you so much, Ravi sir. Thank you so much, Mr. Swan, for joining in today. So hello and a very warm welcome today at a very special day for the entire MSME sector, not just MSME sector but for the entire economy. National Productivity Week is what we are celebrating from today onwards, and this is actually kind of celebration or an observation for each one of us who are attached to any level at the economic growth path. MSMEs, as is been an area uh, of our prime focus, and MSMEs is basically a common thread between all of us, all our distinguished panelists. So that's why focusing on the MSME sector, I must say that productivity as well as the the optimum productivity levels are quite important because of obvious reasons, because of the fact that the economic bandwagon is actually dependent on the MSME sector. It MSMEs holds the key for economic growth, especially when we actually look at the scenario where we are heading towards the post-pandemic era. This becomes all the more important, and the focus of this particular event is definitely to give a kind of to understand the kind of directions that we should head towards, and who else can guide us better than the distinguished and the well placed panel group that we are having. I'm looking forward to hear um, Mr. B.V. Swain, who is the Honorable Secretary of MSME, and Mr. Tejas Goenka, who is the MD of Tally Solutions, which an organization which actually holds the exact crux of the MSME sector when it comes to the management of business processes are concerned, because Tally, I definitely consider that have experienced the whole evolution of Indian MSME ecosystem, not just in the last 2 years or 5 years, but actually more than a couple of, or I think 3 decades. So we are looking forward to hear the panelists on who will be there on our panel discussion. Mr. S. Ravi, Mr. Veda from Razorpay, Mr. Arun Kumar Jha, who is the director, who was the Director General of National Productivity Council, and Mr. Manoj Chugh, who is in the board of advisors for Mahindra Group, and a very important stakeholder of the IT industry. Um, we will definitely come on that, but just to give a brief overview of this particular event, we basically are focusing on Industry 4.0, and the status of Industry 4.0 among the Indian MSMEs. Why this particular Industry 4.0 is being chosen as the subject for this particular panel discussion is because we all have known that the transformation is happening at a multi-level, and transformation is actually driven by technology. That is also true, and transformation is also needed in order to give a jump start to the economic growth path. And MSMEs require this particular jumpstart, this transformation at the most. And having said that, Industry 4.0 is something which is very crucial for the next, you can say next 5 years, not just 5 years, but next 10 years to move ahead and to establish the leadership of Indian MSMEs. So Industry 4.0 is all about advanced level automations. Industry 4.0 is all about acquiring new skill sets, to deliver quality manufacturing. And Industry 4.0 is all about giving more control to the MSME entrepreneur. And with you know with without much delay, I would definitely like to invite Mr. Tejas Goenka, uh, MD of Tally, to give a message and to actually set the tone of this particular thing. Then we are looking forward to hear Mr. BB Swen, who is actually um, driving the MSME's development and the MSME the status of MSME development in the country. And definitely we are looking forward to hear from him. Let's invite Mr. Tejas Goenka.
Thank you, Faiz, for the kind introduction. Hello, everyone. Today is an interesting and special day that marks our perpetual quest to increase productivity. From the time that humans have been alive, we have sought to do things better and better ways of doing things. This has led to the innovation of the wheel, the concepts of the assembly line, to total quality management, and honestly, even our famous Indian jugaad has really been this quest to make things faster, better, more productive. Today is National Productivity Day, a day earmarked by the National Productivity Council under the Ministry of Commerce and Industry to remind us and help us push even further to do more and do better. On this day, SME Street, along with Tally, have partnered to understand Industry 4.0, the journey ahead for MSMEs. The intent of this report is to discover and highlight the opportunities and impacts of Industry 4.0, keeping the MSME lens in mind. In this report, we can expect to get several insights that we will publish along with SME Street that are specific to the MSME community, and I hope it can help you as a business do even better. We also have with us today Mr. B.B. Swain, the Secretary from the Ministry of MSME, to address us. Along with him, we have a fantastic panel with Mr. S. Ravi, the ex-chairperson of the BSE, Mr. Manoj Chugh, a veteran and very well-known technology leader, and a great and dear friend, Veda, who heads the SME and startup business at Razorpay. All of them will be discussing the opportunities and challenges faced by MSMEs in getting future ready. I hope you all will enjoy the session, and I will now hand it over to Faiz to take this forward.
So thank you so much. Thank you so much, Tejas, for the short and crisp and very well pointed, introduction. And definitely uh, evolution and this particular, if you actually look at the development of, economies of various economies and development of entire socio ecosystem, things we have seen a lot of new things coming in, and we have seen a lot of new things becoming popular. At the same time, they are they're creating their own space. So we hope that MSMEs are also looking at adding more value to the economy. MSMEs are looking forward to have a better productivity, have a better outreach with respect to their output quality. But definitely, we will be, again, as mentioned by Tejas, we are working on a report which is going to be coming up with some of the very crucial and important takeaways with respect to the status of Industry 4.0 among the MSMEs. And for that, I would definitely like to have all the participants and the viewers of this particular webinar to give us insights, and we have a set of questions as well which we will circulate later on. But now I would like to invite the person who is being the driver for the MSME policy influence, and the person who is actually is looking at MSMEs at the center stage. And he, because he is at the center stage himself, I would like to invite Mr. BB Swain to share his perspective on industry 4.0 and MSMEs, and give us his insightful knowledge. Thank you so much, Mr. Swan. Please take the speaking slot.
Thank you so much, Mr. Askari. I hope you can hear me clearly. Okay, Mr. Tejas, the esteemed panelists today, dignitaries, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, everyone. It's indeed my pleasure to participate in the event today. I'd like to congratulate the organizers for selecting a very topical theme. As we all agree, digitization of manufacturing has now become a fundamental component of any economy's development process, so much so that this transformation is referred to as Industry 4.0. The use of technology in equipping MSMEs to be more competitive cannot be overstated. Recognizing this, our new schemes on MSME champions has a virtual component and stresses on the importance of R&D. Besides, there are a couple of more schemes in the early stages of discussion where we envisage to provide handholding and information to MSMEs regarding registration, access to credit and technology, and to all activities which can enhance their performance. The ministry has been running several seminars, workshops, and trainings to create awareness and familiarization of M2M, IoT, AI, etc. through its various technology centers and tool rooms. Few private units have also set up captive training arrangements and technology centers. The Ministry of MSME is working with clusters and associations to assess the ground level requirements. Among such endeavors is one of getting in place an IoT readiness index. It would be a diagnostic study to assess the appetite and acceptability. Once available, necessary and customized intervention will be provided. Amidst the first wave of COVID-19, our ministry had launched the Champions Portal for redressing grievances of MSMEs. This was necessary considering that MSMEs, especially micro enterprises, naturally borne the brunt of the impact of the pandemic. We received about 42,000 grievances. You'll find it very interesting that about 15% of these grievances on the Champions Portal which received clearly related to technology, which shows the appetite of MSMEs towards this very, very important area. For MSMEs to adopt Industry 4.0 and modernization, the first and foremost step is to bring MSMEs under the ambit of a formal framework. The government has already initiated this by revising the definition of MSMEs on 26 June 2020 and launching the Udyam portal on 1st July 2020. You'll be happy to know that in the past 18 months, around 72 lakh MSMEs have already registered in this portal. And it's a continuous process. Every day we are getting about 20,000 more registrations. And at the end of the week, almost a lakh. We are quite obviously, we envisage a future in which MSMEs come into the formal economy and quite obviously take benefit of all the schemes which are available for them. The Ministry of MSME is taking concrete steps towards making MSMEs future ready by focusing on Industry 4.0. 18 tool rooms, 15 technology centers, and number of extension centers, TCECs, are gradually adopting Industry 4.0 by procuring Industry 4.0 compliant machinery and plant. Skilling and training on these machines will create Industry 4.0 ready workforce. The ministry is launching the MSME Champion Lean program, which entails lean manufacturing. Specialists handhold the MSMEs by visiting the premises and assessing the readiness to adopt Industry 4.0 and provide training and roadmap towards adoption of Industry 4.0. The JET component of MSME Champions program will also help the MSMEs to get financial assistance towards upgrading the technologies which can be Industry 4.0 compliant. MSME digital programs will provide digital empowerment by way of provision of creation of websites, hostings, MSME ERP suites, and technical support through call centers. We are quite obviously aiming towards Industry 4.0. The stakeholder support is extremely crucial in successful implementation of most of the schemes which are now being envisaged, now on the table, but will soon be launched. MSMEs have the potential to flourish by adopting Industry 4.0. I wish them good luck. My best wishes for the success of this event. As usual, I think Mr. Askari always takes up events which are very, very topical. I'm quite grateful to Tally, which is which is I think working as kind of co-organizer of this particular very important event. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your attention. I'll be leaving. It would have been a real pleasure to listen to the panelists, but I'll have to go to the airport. So I think you'll give me the leave of absence. So thank you so much. Thank you so much, Faizi. Thank you so much, esteemed panelists. And thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you
I'll be
so much
leaving.
for the, yeah, sure, sir. It is really a pleasure, always such a pleasure, listening you and definitely getting insights with regards to the MSME oriented development work, especially with regards to the digital MSME programs and digital MSME scheme. I'm really looking forward that yes, transformation, a positive transformation is on its way. I'm also, always when I hear you, I get a kind of direction that yes, MSMEs are at the center stage, and this is the right time that they should be focused. They should have a kind of priority focus. So definitely, I would not hold you more. Thank you so much for joining in,
Thank you
sir.
so much. Thank you so much, Pedro. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So. So with this, definitely we have received a very interesting, insightful, and a very constructive message from Ministry of MSME. Mr. Swan have expressed some of the activities which are doing pretty good. Industry 4.0 is also something at a priority focus for the MSME ministry, and that's why we are working and we are focusing on this particular thing. Before we get into our next phase of this particular event, which will be the panel discussion, I would just give a brief about how we actually selected this particular topic of conducting this activity, because this webinar is basically is one element to this whole activity, an activity which actually conceptualized only keeping the MSME development and the MSMEs growth at the top priority. So we actually discussed initially that yes, there has to be an outreach, there has to be a motivation required for the MSME sector at this moment, where we are moving towards the post pandemic era, and that's basically the motivation is required. Industry 4.0 is being basically a topic because in the National Productivity Week, this particular subject is considered to be the theme of the national productivity. So Industry 4.0 is basically this holds a very important key to drive manufacturing and to enable the MSME sector to do to enhance their efficiency. So that's basically the main important reason to select this particular topic, and that's what we have a upcoming panel uh, who is actually from the expert IT, field, and an in-depth, knowledgeable resource for the finance, who actually have led, organizations like BSC India, and have been working with some of the large portfolios, large companies, as well as MSMEs, to from the perspective of their finances. Mr. S. Ravi we have. Mr. Manoj Chug, I mentioned that I always enjoy and relish the kind of conversations and the motivation from Mr. Chug, that he, when I was in kindergarten, he started, he started the IT thing, whatever we call it, like the digital transformation of today, when we have, the next levels of Amazon, and, he is the person who is basically have experienced the hands-on experienced, the technology and the, connectivity issues, in 90s or even before that, in late 80s. So it is always a pleasure to hear him. Mr. Arun Jha, who is our great motivator, who is been, I have a pleasure to, yes sir, thank you that you have made it, sir. So for him, I have been interacting with him since last 10 years on the MSME, more than 10 years, in fact, on the MSME subject. And then he, led some of the organizations like NISBIRD from the Ministry of MSME at that point of time, and basically National Productivity Council. He was just completed his tenure in National Productivity Council as a Director General, and again, a finance expert and a bureaucrat who understands productivity, understands MSMEs, is with us. Thank you so much, Mr. Jha. We have Vedanarayan Vedas, wonderful motivator for startups, and innovator, and basically a transformer himself, who actually who actually have created a wonderful digital payment related tool and digital payment. He actually transformed the payment system. So representing Razorpay, Veda is here, and I welcome all the panelists. I think we already have got all the panelists with us. Um, so let's start with Mr. Ravi, who is been there and understands the financial nuances, especially. And when we are talking about Industry 4.0, how do you look at this whole transformation from from the perspective of organizational growth, as well as the productivity growth? So please share your perspective on this whole transformation. Then we will go to Mr. Chug.
So, first of all, thank you, and good evening to everybody, and thank you for inviting me, guys. So, first thing that I would say, there are some ingredients that make or break an MSME. So, first of all, a business model. First and most foremost. Second is equity, capital, working capital, funding. Third is operating cost. And fourth is the ability to take shocks time and again. So disruptors which can, so there are four elements actually which make or break a MSME. And coming to the first, the business model, yes, business model is very important. You have to have the right business model, an efficient business model. The second is which is the biggest challenge for every SME, MSME, is the working capital and the equity, because that is why their limitation of capital is always there. And I have seen when they grow, and that's a very, very difficult phase of their span of their whole company. When they grow, they require more capital. And when they require capital, the capital, equity capital comes at a very huge cost. The working capital comes with security, etc., etc. So that's a challenge. And if an efficient company is there, it'll sort of overcome that hurdle. And I think the right advice is very important. Third is the operating cost. And that is where technology comes into play. The operating cost can be reduced by, a lot of studies do say, 5 to 7% through technology. Technology doesn't come easy. Can there be a shared technology? And that is what we have to have, a shared platform for common industries, so that at least the technology cost can come down. And that's one thing that I think we need to work on, because shared technology can be a very, very big advantage, because the cost will come down by 5 to 10%, 8%. With technology, there is another thing that will come down is compliance. So today, compliance is a huge cost. You know, you will not believe, I was doing some stats on that. The compliance cost itself is 5 to 7%, because as the entrepreneur is looking for business, there are compliances that come, GST, tax, TDS, governance, all these type of compliances come across. Pollution, maybe multiple regulators you have to deal at the local level. So that is a very big cost. And through technology, automated technology, bookkeeping, nice methods, you can reduce the cost by 2, 3, 4%, which is very relevant in today's context. And last but not the least, the disruptor. You have very difficult times like COVID, which can come, which has come and has disrupted it not once, thrice, and can we take the shock? But the government here has stepped in to give the credit lines, emergency credit lines. That's fine, but the promoters also, the company must also have the wherewithal to sustain that. So building up for a shock is what is with what I have seen from my own experience in SMEs, is a very, it's not there, and they are very vulnerable. They sort of are fragile here, and that is what we need to understand.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Last but not the least, they are dependent. I won't take much time. Last but not the least, they are dependent on somebody. So how does their credit cycle work? An efficient credit cycle is very important. Who are they supplying? Who are they taking raw material from? And that is what, you know, there is a tendency of the big companies to sort of be very difficult with the SMEs. Of course, government has instructed PSUs to give them preference on payment, but there is always a tendency from general big companies not to step on and drive them as much as possible, because they know they are fragile. So these are the 5 takes that I have. And going forward, I think each one of them rightly addressed. Of course, productivity being the key, you can really overcome this. That's my take.
Perfect, sir. Perfect. Thank you so much. In fact, you have taken out 5 very valid points. Technology definitely. Technology is one of the element you have pointed out, and we have Mr. Manoj Chugh, who definitely can give a very insightful as well as very practical observation, as well as I hope that could be a suggestion also, where how technology, like sir have suggested, that shared technology can be a great reformer in this. Mr. Chugh, please share your opinion, which is actually based on last 3-4 decades of looking at the evolution of this technology. How do you see that possibility of shared technology, or how do you look at technology can definitely drive the industry 4.0 for the MSME manufacturing? Please, looking forward to hear from you.
Thank you very much, Faiz. And again, I'd like to congratulate SMEStreet, and I want to thank you for inviting me today. I must say that Mr. Ravi has made the task very, very easy for, I think, all of us subsequent speakers. He's clearly laid down the foundations of what makes a business go round and the world go round in turn. Of course, as you've said, I've spent many years in technology, so I tend to be very biased towards looking at technology for every solution. But before I jump into the technology, I just want to add a couple of comments to what Mr. Ravi has said. And I think that it is very, very important, and I think the pandemic has taught us this lesson, that we need to go back, no matter how small, how large our organizations are, to really question ourselves. as to what was the purpose for which we set out on this journey of creating the business. And I think in the humdrum of life over the last many, many years that we've been running our businesses, somewhere that purpose has kind of got lost. And as we rediscover that purpose for ourselves, I'm sure that somewhere we will absolutely recognize the importance, and I would say the growing importance of the customer. And I think that we all need to accept the fact that somewhere this noble cause of listening to the customer, engaging with the customer, understanding the customer, looking at their changing needs has got lost. If we have truly remained connected with our customer, as Mr. Ravi said, businesses face shocks. Maybe we wouldn't face the kind of shocks that we have. But again, easier said than done. But I think I'd like to go back to the culture piece. And I think as we look at the culture, in addition to the customer, the second important pillar, which I think each one of us, as we reflect, will recognize is the need to innovate. We were incredibly innovative when we started the business. Are we continuing to be innovative? Is our culture really driving that? Have we set a process, a methodology to make sure that we are able to understand the changes that are happening right across in the environment, being connected to the customer, leveraging innovation? Are we therefore then leapfrogging and moving forward into the future? We want to speak about technology, but I would say that in addition to technology, we have to recognize the importance of people and processes. And a future-ready workforce, therefore, is incredibly critical as we start looking at innovation, we start looking at customer, and we start looking at change. And I think I'd like to leave a message today that as we look at making investments in technology, which are very, very important, it is also incredibly important to look at reskilling our workforce. Because if our workforce doesn't understand how the new world is going to work, we are not going to be successful as an entrepreneur or as a small team which is driving the business. So I'd like to encourage all of you to make sure that you are investing significantly, I would say significantly higher going forward in the future in terms of creating this new skill set. I think in manufacturing from a technology perspective, we have witnessed a sea change. And this is being driven by, believe it or not, fast and big data. And I think that our ability today to connect the shop floor to the top floor and build scalable industrial IoT stacks, which are going to be the core of an MSME's infrastructure, are here to stay. In the past, when we built networks, we connected our offices, we connected our branches, we connected maybe the factory to our head office location, or even if we were a very, very small business, in order to communicate with each other, we connected our computers. So that was good. It was in the office. We drove efficiencies. We took some costs out. As Mr. Ravi said, some of our operating expenses, because of the fact that we were able to reduce duplicity and duplication, we were able to take out. But our shop floor was still disconnected from a technology perspective. And I think Industry 4.0 makes that magic happen, because now we are able to connect the machines onto a network which is now accessible by the same computers which were doing our accounting in our back office, or where our CEO or our entrepreneur was managing the business from. So connecting the shop floor to the top floor, I think, has become a reality. The second is the customer engaging with us, coming to us through his or her mobile phone, provides us yet another opportunity of serving the customer much more directly. And the day is not far when a customer will be able to track, even if it's an MSME who's serving the customer, in terms of where the product is in its entire workflow within the manufacturing, back office, supply chain cycles. So the spirit of innovation, focus on technology, extension of the digital thread, reskilling of the workforce are going to redefine how MSMEs are going to work in the future. And I'm very, very confident that the MSMEs are going to seize the opportunity.
Wonderful,
Thank you.
wonderful, sir. Wonderful, and very, very wisely you have pointed out all these points. In a report, I would like to quote, and we have two more introductory messages on this panel. But before that, we we have a we actually have published a report last year in which we actually spoke about how skills are getting transformed, and like by 2025 we expected, and the report expected that there could be 25% of new skill set required, and the MSMEs need to understand, upgrade, and transform their workforce accordingly, and can definitely have to evolve in the new acquisition of new skill set. So we have Mr. Arun Kumar Jha also with us. I would like to invite him and like to hear from him, from the perspective of how Industry 4.0 is being, is being a priority for definitely for a future ready MSME ecosystem. Mr. Jha, thank you so much for joining in. I know you have actually been coming from an event, and such a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Mr. Faz. Am I audible?
Yes, yes, you are.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. I am very pleased to be with the SME Street, and I have been associated with this for the long time, and I know that you are doing a lot of good work. The topic that is Industry 4.0 is very, very dear to me, and I always feel that this is the time for us. This is the time for India. All earlier three industry revolutions, for the sake of nomenclature, Industry 1, Industry 2, Industry 3. The Industry 1 we missed by almost 100 years. Industry 2 we missed by almost 20 to 30 years. When electricity was invented and electricity was started being used. And third one, automation, also we missed by about 20 years long period. But this time, Industry 4.0 is very, very good thing for the Indian country, because what happens that in all the other three industrial revolution, we have had to spend a lot of money for capital acquisition. Here in software, we are already enriched with the high number of human resources. And India is already a leading country in the software. So what happens, we have to transform ourselves to adopt Industry 4.0 by, experimenting with the artificial intelligence, with the 3D printing.
So you got on mute. Yes, yes. Now it's okay. Mr. Jha, we are unable to hear you. Hello.
Emerging economy to the developed economy, and I have a genuine belief that it is the Industry 4.0 which will propel us from this emerging economy to the state of the developed country. What happens that you just see the car which you are riding. The moment it will see red light, it will stop automatically. You don't need to do anything. So it can be done through artificial intelligence. When a sensor will be fit into your engine, it will just see that. If you are in the parking area, if you are in daylight, light, everything, it means that there will be a lot of savings which we are wasting otherwise. And the corollary of all these things will be high number of employment. You can imagine the employment which can be generated. I remember during the 80s when the computerization was happening, everywhere we are talking that, look, we will not be able to do this because we are afraid that we will replace labor with the computer. What happened? IT is providing jobs to almost 30 million people in the country. And the amount which we are getting as a part of our foreign exchange by exporting our services is immense. And not only that, we are exporting our manpower also abroad. So, just look at the Infosys, TCS, and other. But Industry 4 will give chance to even the smallest unit. Like we are talking here, we are transforming the data to the other places. People are hearing. You just take the example of during the COVID, we were taught how to take online classes. From one webinar, one teacher, you can transmit it to the thousands of the schools. So that is the beauty of Industry 4.0.
Exactly.
Anything can be achieved. So I think that is our time, and जिसका बोलते हैं हमारा समय आ गया. ये हमारा समय. Thank you very
Exactly.
much.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Jhansa, for the kind words. We have Veda, with us, who is actually the co-founder of Razorpay, and he's actually driving the SME business. And what that mean is basically digital payments and the innovation of digital payments, which we have experienced in last just couple of years. Last 2-3 years we have seen enormous growth in terms of digital payments is concerned. So Razorpay is an organization which actually is transforming this particular thing from the MSME or the micro entrepreneurs perspective. So definitely it's a pleasure having you, Veda, on this forum. Please share your opening remarks, and then we have few questions as well. So yeah.
Sure. Thank you so much for those kind words, Faiz. Just a point of correction. I'm not the co-founder of Razorpay. I take care of the SME and the startup practice,
Yes.
The business unit at Razorpay. And obviously, we've seen a huge growth in the last couple of years when it comes to SMEs and startups embracing digital and digital payments. A lot of it has been driven by the effect of the pandemic itself, because a lot of businesses are becoming digital. They're moving towards digital as part of the larger Digital India initiative as well. So we've seen some huge growth at Razorpay. And at Razorpay, we provide multiple business units which take care of the entire 360-degree money movement needs of an SME or a startup. Both the inward money movement need, where a SME business owner can receive funds from their end customers through a payment gateway, a payment link, a payment page solution, and the outward money movement cycle through Razorpay's business banking suite of solutions provided under the Razorpay X umbrella, lines of working capital credit, payroll, commercial cards, etc. And we've seen some huge growth across all business lines, but we've noticed something very interesting. I just want to take you through a couple of very interesting insights that we've had. Given that in India, Google search is an almost complete monopoly when it comes to the search market in India. Google search trends are a very good indicator of what are the key need states that are there from an SME perspective or from any customer demographic segment perspective. What we have noticed basis the research that we have done at Razorpay is that there are 3 distinct set of keyword pools around which SMEs and entrepreneurs in India today have questions. The first one is on digital literacy. How do I use digital marketing for growing my business? How do I build a digital brand presence for my dhanda? How do I grow my dhanda in this new age, post-pandemic digital world order? That's a key question that they have. The second question that a lot of entrepreneurs have is that they don't have any financial literacy. They don't have a formal education in finance. So a lot of first-time entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs, don't know how to read a P&L and a balance sheet. So financial literacy is another key question that they have. The third question that they also have is around compliance. They want to understand a lot of the compliance rules, in India. For example, they want to understand how GST works. What are the applicable GST slabs for their line of business? So these are 3 distinct problem statements or questions which are there in the minds of entrepreneurs, which is something that we have researched basis the keyword demands patterns that we have noticed on Google. Digital literacy, financial literacy, and compliance. And the other key thing, other very, very interesting thing that we have observed, while obviously because of the pandemic, we've seen a huge growth of something called as direct to consumer businesses which are essentially e-commerce but are going direct to consumer. And I'll tell you this funny story, Faiz and everybody else. So we at Razorpay, we have this partnership going with one of India's largest e-commerce marketplaces. and wherein we have offered a suite of customized payment solutions, end-to-end payment solutions for all of their sellers who are selling on their online marketplace. And what we noticed was, and we've conducted multiple webinars just like this for all of their sellers, where I have personally been a speaker. And what we've noticed is that while a lot of these sellers make good money by selling on that platform, they're not happy. They're not satisfied. They want to do more. They want to go direct to consumer. They want to go D2C, and they want to build their own brand. And they want to control the entire customer experience from discovery to fulfillment. They don't want to be reliant on a third-party marketplace. The other interesting thing is that I was in full flow in that webinar, just like this one, when I was stopped midway because people said, "Sir, कुछ समझ नहीं आ रहा, जो भी बोलना है हिंदी में बोलिए." And I had to continue the rest of the presentation in my broken South Indian Hindi. And essentially the point that I'm trying to make here is that local vernacular is becoming ever more so important when it comes to communicating with the new age SMEs and entrepreneurs of today. And this is also the fact that local vernacular is so important, Hindi is so important for communicating with entrepreneurs, is also symptomatic of the fact that entrepreneurship and SMEs are finally becoming mainstream. And it is no longer restricted to India, but it is actually moving into Bharat. Here's another very interesting trend. Entrepreneurs, new age digital SME entrepreneurs of today, they are not like Sachin and Binny Bansal, who started Flipkart, many years ago. They're not like Shashank Kumar and Harshil Mathur, who are the co-founders of Razorpay, who understood both the importance of digital and technology and the inner workings of digital and technology. The new age digital SME entrepreneur founder understands, of course, the importance of digital, but does not understand, nor do they care about the inner workings of the technology stack, which is powering the entire digital ecosystem. So what they are looking for are what we call #no-code products that can make these platforms more accessible to them, even if they know nothing about technology. Faiz, let's say you are a SME entrepreneur, you don't know anything about tech, you don't know anything about coding, you don't have the luxury to hire a developer, but you can still start using these digital payment products without writing a single line of code, without any hassle of integration. So essentially, digital payments has become democratized and is accessible to everybody. It's no longer elitist, it's egalitarian. It has become essentially an Aam Aadmi platform in that sense. So these have been some critical changes that we have observed when it comes to the adoption of digital payments by SMEs in India in general, and how it has helped them grow their productivity and how it has helped them scale their business.
Exactly. No, so exactly, democratizing the power of technology is happening, and very important point which you have mentioned, that this is the kind of the search results are definitely showing the actual nerve of what is happening. And yes, very very well articulated points you have mentioned. So I have a question which Mr. Manoj Chugh can definitely respond, or can have his perspective. Since we are actually in a environment which is becoming highly converged, the convergence of multiple skill sets, and those skill sets as well are evolving and are growing from one level to another. For example, manufacturing, we have seen the assembly lines getting automated. We have also witnessing assembly lines getting the smart tag on them. At the same time, we have supervisors on the on the manufacturing assembly lines, who are now accessing ERP data, who are now contributing and giving access to all the kind of real time data which is being which is fed to their managers, and their managers are contributing. So a convergence is happening, like Veda has mentioned, digital literacy to the technical staff is also happening. At the same time, the technical expertise is also getting delivered to to a person who is actually sitting in office. So having a converged environment, Mr. Chugh, please give us an insight on what should be the approach right now. Like Veda has mentioned, yes, it has to be the plug and play perspective is there, but what as a technologist, how do you look at this whole situation for a business which is not large in size, but definitely is contributing towards very important business cycle.
Again, Faiz, let me try and simplify and take the messages that my co-panelists have already reiterated. Mr. Ravi spoke about reducing operating cost. Veda spoke about leveraging technology, no-code products, etc.
Yes.
My view is very simple. I think that small and mid-sized businesses are going to adopt and adapt new technologies and solutions quicker, better, faster than their older cousins or brothers, or larger cousins and brothers, if you will. And the reason for this is that they really don't have much of a baggage. So for example, if I am running a workflow today, which is integrating my customer's purchase order with the supply chain at the back end and with my manufacturing capability, and I want to automate this entire process. One way that I can do that very efficiently and quickly is by introducing what I would call digital workers. So today the choice is I go and hire somebody, a warm body, to go and do a specific task or job. Second is, if I am a small and mid-sized business, I can actually run 24/7 without too many people by bringing in digital workers. So some of the tasks can be performed by human workers. Some of the tasks can be performed by digital workers. You have to pick and choose the capability and decide who will do which task. So within a workflow, you define the tasks and then you decide who is the best person to implement, execute the task. Is it a human worker or a digital worker? So for example, a purchase order comes in to pick up the products or the specific product codes that have been ordered, right? And then to look at, how the invoicing, etc., has to be done, breaking those product codes down into the form, right? Making sure purchase orders are placed on the suppliers, and then doing the integration at the factory and saying, okay, this is the product that you need to deliver. Let's say we have said our delivery is 6 weeks, 8 weeks, or 2 weeks, 4 weeks, making sure that's baked into the production cycle. A digital worker can do that very, very efficiently. Digital worker doesn't ask for holiday, doesn't ask for pay hike. Yeah, no pay hikes. Never. No digital worker will ever come to you, stand in front of you and say, sir, give me a salary hike. Not going to happen. They are going to become more and more productive as they work on more and more tasks. So person is becoming better over time, right? Cost is not an issue, right? They're never going to create a problem for you. And the human worker comes in when the task becomes very, very complex. So if a customer is giving 5 purchase orders at the same time, you may need a human worker to kind of, manage those before they go on to a digital worker. So my message is, workforce training is important because a human worker should be very comfortable in terms of passing on the task to a digital worker, right? Recognizing that the digital worker is going to make the human worker better. For an entrepreneur, it's a clear win-win situation. So I would say that I believe MSMEs have a huge opportunity in India because we don't have baggage of the past to embrace these new technologies, no-code, low-code products Veda is talking about. Many of them are coming use case specific because they leverage AI, right? And I'm not getting into the technologies here to be able to drive those efficiencies. So a very long answer to a very, very simple question, Faiz. I think the opportunity, as Mr. Ravi said, is ours to lose.
Exactly. And yes, so this is something very I must run through very briefly that we in the audience, we have some of the very distinguished names, and most of them are uniquely well informed in their domains. So we have Mr. Sarthak, Ajay Sarthak, who has been listening this. We have King Shuk, who is again an entrepreneur. Some names I can just run see, and points which we are getting in the chat windows or in the question sets. Yes, Mr. Sandeep Ori has mentioned that he pointed out Veda's point of no code products, and this these are the kind of things which seems to be very, very positively taken up by the audience. Vyoma is here, and we have Mr. Ashish Gupta also, Mr. Ganesh Joshi, who are who are getting in line with the kind of conversations which we are having right now. And now moving forward, Mr. Ravi, if you can give us a bit of understanding of you being a banker, because you are also somebody very important position who actually deals with the banks on behalf of corporates, on behalf of organizations. You read project reports, you understand the criticality of project reports, you understand the criticality of projects. So being a when you actually talk to banks, or when you put yourself as a banker, when you evaluate a project, do you see that being a industry 4.0, or being a technically equipped organization, do you see that this becomes a added collateral in at the bank level, where credit lines can be increased, or more trust factor can be built?
So to start with, if you look historically, banks were working on more of collaterals rather than the business model. So for them, how much security are you giving? You go just walk in as an ordinary customer and go to a bank, they will say how much collateral, 4 times, 3 times, whatever. So the mindset of the banker has also to change, and it is changing. And as all the panelists have said, and especially Mr. Jha had stated very clearly, and also all the panelists. So what I would say is, there are 3 things that is again very important. New age. So legacy issues have to be sort of taken off. If you have to convince a banker is looking at climate change. There is a new order, global order, climate change, technology, and then also looking at carbon credits. So the banker is now looking at also what is your core strength, what's your core business. Are you an MSME in the, say, power sector, or coal handling, or ash handling, or are you MSME in another sector which is EV motors or something, EV vehicles? So that is also a very driving force for the bankers to evaluate. So our new order is going to be the place for SMEs and MSMEs. That's for sure. Let us be clear. We have to move, and the bankers also have to change their mindset to move from the historical collateral type of thing. There has to be some risk capital that will be attached. And also there is going to be the new order or the new business model that will be developed around technology, more efficiency, more compliance. So another big challenge for the bankers were MSMEs were not giving their balance sheets on time. How do you take the next year's credit? If you delay the balance sheet by 3 months or 6 months, your annual renewal goes down. So how does it work? So the bankers and the MSMEs had this constraint. So delayed compliance created a lot of problem. And that is, I think the bankers are also with this automation, with GST, this has moved into a different direction altogether. So that's my take.
Yes.
I think a long answer to a very
very articulated response, sir. We have Mr. Jha, who is been so industry 4.0, I know is very close to.
I must apologize. There is some building work next door, so I'm so sorry for that.
No, please, sir. That's okay. Mr. Jha, I would just like to come to you and understand from you, being a well connected bureaucrat, and also a professional who understands the MSME. At the same time, industry 4.0, I know, sir, that industry 4.0 is one of the main, you can say, love for you. I understand that, and if I can use this word, because you have a very strong inclination towards that. Uh, can you just share how this particular trend of enabling the MSMEs to the next level, MSME manufacturers to the next level, and motivating them to adopt technologies? How is this initiatives? How is this priority is converting into initiatives at the government level?
Thank you, Faz. Actually, you are aware that earlier there was a limit of investment for defining MSME, and the same has been done away with, and now the turnover has been inserted. This has been done basically to make the transition from micro to small and small to medium easier for the industry, MSME, particularly for the MSME. Otherwise, they used to remain in the same segment due to the fear of losing incentives. You are aware about all this. So what happened to make the transition easy? Turnover thing has brought in. So that is the one which Government of India did. Secondly, we have seen that in the post-pandemic, which is have made our life different. This hybrid work culture and the lockdown and the fear of spreading infection, etc., has put a some kind of question mark in the survival of the MSME sector. But those who have been able to shift to this online platform, those who have been able to shift to digital platforms, have been able to save themselves. And at the same time, Government of India is trying to help them by extending emergency line of credit guarantee. You are aware about it, that earlier it was 3,50,000 crore for MSME and other sector also. And the same has been retained in this budget also, and has been extended till March 2023. And also 50,000 crore been added to that. In addition to that, the credit guarantee scheme, which was not successful, because as it is, the interest rate was quite high. And over and above in the credit guarantee trust fund scheme, MSME has to give extra 1 to 1.5%, which they were not ready to give, because it used to make their interest payment very, very high. So that has also been tried to be addressed. Of course, it has not yet been announced, but Government of India has promised in the budget that rupees 2 lakh crore has been set aside for that, and they will try to look into this fact. So that will also, this 2 lakh crore, we have been estimated that how much is the deficit, credit deficit for the MSME sector, how much is the appetite for the credit sector in the MSME, and it was somehow nobody has done any exercise, but we used to think in the ministry that almost 5 lakh crore is the requirement. So putting this 2 lakh crore and leveraging the same fund can go, in MSME at one point of time, leverage ratio was X10. That is very, very high. So you can imagine, even if it is 6 times, 7 times, so 14 lakh crore will be available, but it is not a cash transfer. As Mr. Ravi was saying, that MSME need to understand the value of financial accounting, financial planning, and the balance. How will they accept that? How fast they learn this, so that their credit worthiness increase? Presently, all their balances is done with a view to save tax. So at the lose credit also. For anywhere there is on account of turnover, they do not become eligible. So all these things which are there to help them. And thirdly, what happened that the GST has also made them paying a lot of taxes. Earlier, if you remember, the printing was always untouched by all the taxes. But now there are 10 items in the GST sector. If somebody has to pay tax on ink, he will definitely like to take input credit, and for that he will have to pay taxes, and again he will have to charge taxes from you.
Yes,
So
yes.
GST, now people are getting acclimatized, but MSME sector is still struggling to get acclimatized because of our own past legacy. As everybody was talking that we have no legacy in MSME, but MSME has one bad legacy: to save tax, to hide financial, transparency. All these things they have to learn. So these things will help MSME in transcending to different levels. Thank you very much.
Very true, very true, sir. Very true. Very interesting points you have made. I have one point which I would like to mention after hearing Veda, because I would like to know from him about his interactions in the pandemic, as well as in this particular phase when we have just dealt the second or third wave of pandemic. How do you see the SME onboarding at your platform have changed? Is it being improvised? What are the questions that the MSMEs normally come up to? Veda, can you just share a glimpse on the on ground on ground MSMEs inclination towards technology?
Yeah, sure. It's a very interesting question, Faiz. And at Razorpay, we have the opportunity to have a ringside perspective to what's happening across the entire SME ecosystem in the country. Because, as I said, we process the entire money movement cycle. And one of the things that we've observed, apart from some of the changes that I mentioned, when I was talking earlier, is the fact that the overwhelming majority of SMEs who are signing up on Razorpay today for accepting digital payments, either for inward cycles or for the Razorpay X business banking solution, payroll solution, whatever it is, the overwhelming majority of SMEs who are coming here are people who are taking their first baby steps in building a digital business. Forget about digital payments. Digital business वो पहली बार बना रहे हैं. And these are not people moving over from one competitive player to Razorpay. These are people who are first-time entrepreneurs, who are first-time digital entrepreneurs, which I think is extremely interesting and a very encouraging sign for the future of India's digital ecosystem and the SME and the startup heartbeat of the nation. I think that is something which is very interesting. The second key thing is that almost 30% of the people who are signing up with us at Razorpay are people who have traditionally had some kind of a brick and mortar setup.
Okay.
कोई ट्रेडिशनल धंधा चल रहा था उनका, एंड नाउ दे वांट टू डिजिटाइज देयर बिजनेस. पापा की बिजनेस थी, नाउ दे वांट टू बिकम न्यू एज, मॉडर्नाइज, दे वांट टू बिकम डिजिटल, दे वांट टू यूज डिजिटल पेमेंट्स टू मेक देयर प्रोडक्ट्स एंड सर्विसेज मोर एक्सेसिबल टू एंड कस्टमर्स. And we have noticed a huge boom, like I mentioned earlier, of D2C, which is e-com, direct to consumer. Apart from that, we've also seen a huge boom of two specific sectors, edtech and health tech, which is again intuitive if you think about it, because people are stuck at home and they want way, because of lockdown situations, etc., because of the pandemic, they don't want to step out, and they want ways and means to be able to upgrade themselves, upgrade their skill set, learn new skills, which explains the growth of edtech SMEs who provide education services online. Health tech, again, they are stuck at home, they want ways and means to be able to discover healthier and fitter versions of themselves without having to step out. Right, without putting themselves at risk, which explains the growth of health tech. So a lot of these very cool SME business sectors are growing very, in a very accelerated pace because of the pandemic itself, and some very, very interesting changes have actually happened across the SME ecosystem in the country.
Perfect. And yes, new age, early adopters, new age adopters of technology, and the transformers, from conventional family businesses to, people digitally savvy businesses. So this transformation is really motivating for technologists as well as to the MSME development advocates as well, like people like you and me. So just to make an important note which I missed in this, that this particular series, the Future Ready forum series, will have more such webinars, will have more interactions with experts, and we are definitely looking forward to have a support from industry as well as from the participants. And obviously we are coming up with a series of such webinars and events in collaboration with Tally. And we are really looking forward for suggestions also from the perspective of the topics that we can select, because as an audience they can definitely point out, suggest. Like, we have few comments, very interesting, insightful comments and questions which we have seen. Mr. Sandeep Ohri have mentioned to all the panelists, if we can have some quick response to his point, that what he wrote is, like, in addition to the financial needs, he believes compliance issue is the biggest challenge. And why he's actually mentioning, so maybe Mr. Ravi can talk about this, because he's taking an example of the central excise which was enforced when it was there. MSMEs had an exemption of 1.5 crores of sales. Now in the GST regime, it is came down to, like Mr. Jha has also mentioned that, indicated that, but now in the GST thing, it is 20 lakh. So compliance, do you see that is putting more pressure on CAs as well as entrepreneurs? So that's his point. As well as he also mentioned that software startups have major this thing expense on salaries, rent, electricity, which doesn't come in the GST domain. So these points he has mentioned. Mr. Ravi, if you would like to address this.
So first and foremost, I would say that very clearly, compliance is an issue and lack of knowledge is another issue. Means people have to be agile to understand their business and understand it from a 360 degrees. It's not like a big company where you can have specialists across the industry, across the people, across various fields. So MSME has to be agile. Yes, they have to understand. And if they understand compliance, because all it takes is, with technology, just reminders that this is what has to be done. It's all online driven, and people can be reached. Your accountant can be also reached online. And so one has to only get themselves adopted to this. The second point that was made about the 20 lakhs threshold. Well, I think that's a threshold. I think there are other problems of people creating multiple entities below 20 lakhs and evading, which has happened also, and government is quite aware of that. So that is the other side of the. But I think somewhere some mid point has to be reached, and where trust deficit has to be built in, where there should be no misuse of the legislative or tax. Mr. Jha also mentioned about it. People do tend to use it. So I think that is also true. About the third thing, salaries, electricity, etc., etc. So I must also tell you, go for solar and give electricity to the grid. We must, and there is a subsidy given by the government, and the payback period is 2.5 years. Your capex is paid back in 2.5 years. So I think people will have to think. We have to be. Mr. Manojji mentioned about agility and new gen. I think one has to be very agile. In this SME segment, one has to be very agile. We have the proprietor or the directors have to be very, very conversant with all the new things. They have to increase productivity. They have to be efficient. They have to be cost conscious. So, and that is the way it will work, because there is a very, very strong competition, and there is very, very little space for failure. So that is what I would say. So I have something to do today, so can I be excused?
Yes, we are just concluding now. We have covered most of the points, and in fact, time is like been utilized to the best. And I must thank all the panelists who actually have taken their time for this interaction. Raised many important and very critical inputs also based on the experience as well as understanding. And definitely the subject for MSMEs is quite relevant. This subject for MSMEs holds a lot of critical relevance as well, as MSMEs are the backbone of economy. And when we say backbone, it has to be taken care, it has to be taken well care, and all the sorts of people are doing yoga these days in order to stay healthy, and they wanted to keep their backbone upright. And for that, definitely we have our policy makers. We are very thankful to Ministry of MSME for supporting this initiative, and to Mr. BB Swan, who taken his time and participated and presented his views. We are thankful to Tally for supporting this venture, and definitely to Mr. Tejas, who actually have expressed his his proactive support in formulating this, and the team of Tally, obviously, who has worked amazingly on coming up with this particular series. And the series of such webinars will definitely going to touch upon critical issues which are actually required for the MSMEs to discuss, to participate, and to definitely to work upon. And once again, thank you so much, distinguished panelists, Mr. Ravi, Mr. Manoj Chugh. It's always a pleasure, Mr. Jha, and Vedat, and such a pleasure listening to you. Thank you so much from SMEsTreet, from FAIRS. And I definitely would like to stay in touch, and we would definitely like to have more conversations like this.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you to everyone for the opportunity. Stay safe. Take care. Bye-bye.